everyone, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the first video of 2023, and I'm actually filming this on the 1st of January, which I'm very proud of, and it's the best books that I read in 2022. So the first book is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This was the first book that I read in 2022, and I really enjoyed it. Obviously, that's why it's on this list. It's about this utopian society that believes that they have eradicated monsters, but then one day a girl named Jem finds this creature called Pet in her house, in her parents' house, and basically the pet is there to hunt a monster. So at first Jem doesn't believe it. She doesn't believe that the pet is there to hunt a monster because she thinks that there are no monsters left, but eventually she decides to help it, and together they try to find this monster. It explores themes of identity, justice, and also adults not believing kids, even though the kids are right. I really enjoyed it, like I said. It's also, I like how short it is, not because I don't want to read more by Akwaeke Emezi, I actually do. I'm waiting for more translations of their work, because of course I could read it in English, but I want to support the Czech translations, so I'm waiting. So far, their only translated books are Pet and then Freshwater, but I'll just wait for the rest, I guess. So I like that it was short, not because I don't want to read more of their writing. The writing is beautiful, so I would love to read more of that. But I feel like it really fit this story and the book. Also, it's YA and or maybe even middle grade, actually, I'm not sure. It's definitely suitable for like younger readers, which is why I also think it's good that it's short. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend. The second book I want to talk about is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the second book in a loose series, I would say, and it basically follows a set of different characters who visit a cafe which is known for basically time travel. Like, you can go to this cafe and travel back in time, or possibly also into the future, to meet with someone, but there's a set of rules. So for example, I'm not gonna list all of them, but for example, you can only go once, you have to know exactly like which time you want to go to, and you have to meet with somebody who was in the cafe at that time, and also you have to get back to the present before the coffee gets cold. And I read the first book, I think last year, and I loved it. It's very emotional, at least for me. Both of these books were very emotional. I cried. With the first one I sobbed like a baby, and the second one I listened to in public, so I was just like, you know, like trying to blink away my tears, but it was emotional, but also so wholesome, and I just really enjoyed it. You can read the second book without reading the first one, I think, but I wouldn't do that because the first one is maybe still a little bit better than the second one, but both are amazing. And it's also sort of like a series of short stories that are somehow like connected a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty short and it's amazing, so yeah, highly recommend. The next book I also listened to as an audiobook, and it's A Psalm for the Wild Build by Becky Chambers. Oh my god, okay, so this was not just one of my favorite books of this year, but just of all time for me, I guess. I'm definitely gonna reread it or re-listen to it. It got a Czech translation recently, and I'm thinking about getting that done, but I also loved the language, so I'm not sure if I want to read it in translation. Anyway, it's a novella set in this world where basically humans and robots parted ways. Basically, the robots worked for people as they are working for us now, but slowly, because of AI, they started like gaining conscience, and when they fully gained conscience, people, like humans, decided that they no longer want to use them for labor, and they, like I said, parted ways, and the robots went to the wilderness. I'm probably not really doing it justice by explaining it like this, but basically this story follows a monk and a robot who meet. It's the first contact between humans and robots since this parting of ways, and there's not much of a plot, to be honest. It's one of those no plot just vibes books, but it's so nice and calming, and honestly it gave me this like really warm feeling and I enjoyed it so much. Also, it makes you think, or at least it did for me. Like, some of the discussions that they have, the monk and the robot, are really thought-provoking, and I love that. So it's also a bit philosophical almost. And I also read a second book this year. I loved that one as well. I think I liked the first one a little bit more, but both are amazing. Next book I read is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book is very strange, but in the best way possible. Basically, all I'm gonna say about it, because I think you should go into this book not knowing anything, because you're gonna be confused no matter what, so I think it's better to not know much about it. But basically, it is set in this world, sort of, that the main character calls the house, which is a world that is like a big house. And the main character sort of explores this house. He's trying to scientifically like discover certain patterns and stuff like that, but he's also trying to make sense of his memories and his thoughts, because he's kind of thinking like, hey, maybe I'm losing it, because he just doesn't know what to believe. I think that's all I'm gonna say. It's a really good book. I was so confused the first half, but then you get this big aha moment and you're just like, you know, it's, I don't know, at least for me it was like that. Maybe because I don't read thrillers or mysteries or anything with like huge plot twists, so for me any kind of plot twist like this is just mind-blowing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend, again, like all of these books, that's why I'm talking about them here. Next book is 10 minutes and 38 seconds in this strange world by Elif Shafak, and it's set in Turkey in the 20th century, the second half of the 20th century, and it basically starts with the death of the main character, which I think is so interesting. I really liked the narrative style of this book, but we'll get to that. So it starts with Layla's death, and in the first half, every chapter is like 1 minute of her like post death, and it's like one memory of her childhood. And so through those memories you basically find out how she got into Istanbul, how she became a sex worker, which I think is not a spoiler, I think that's literally at the beginning. And yeah, what her life was like. And then in the second half, it's about her friends trying to find her and then trying to give her a proper goodbye. And as you can probably tell, this book was emotional. It was sad. I think I cried, not just once. And it's not even sad because she dies, although that's also sad, but like, you know that from the beginning, so there's not a lot of like shock value to it. But it's just reading about her life and what made her make the decisions that she made. It's just so devastating. But something about the book also felt hopeful to me, and I can't name it. Maybe it was the found family sort of trope, which I can see there. And yeah, it was probably that. So for me, it was sort of a hopeful book in a way, but it's also very sad. Also, maybe look up trigger warnings. That was one thing that happened that I did not expect. I should have probably expected it, but I didn't. So yeah. But I don't want to say what it is because it's kind of a spoiler. So if you feel like you have some triggers, please look up the trigger warnings. So yeah, it was a great book, very emotional. And like I said, it had a really unique narrative style. I love that. And I also enjoyed reading it for the language. The language was also beautiful, which, as you will see, is a kind of a theme among these books. I forgot to say it with Piranesi, but it was also written so beautifully. The next book I want to talk about is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I think you must have heard about this book if you follow people on like bookish social media. but basically it's a letter from a son to his mother who cannot read, and it's very... basically you kind of follow his life. It's not linear, I think. I read it a while ago, but I think it's not linear. It's just... But yeah, you just follow his life as Vietnamese American. It was such a strong book, and it did make me feel a lot of feelings. And again, like I said with the Psalm for the Wild Build, it's very thought-provoking. And yeah, oh my god, it makes me emotional again. It's a great book. And the writing here, oh my god, I can't even describe how beautiful the writing is. I mean, the author is a poet, so makes sense, but still, like, I don't really love sad books, which is ironic because a lot of these books are sad, or at least like emotional, which is normally not. It's not like the majority of books I read are not sad books, but here, because of the writing, I didn't even mind that it's like sad or emotional. I just devoured it, and it was amazing. Yeah, I really think you should read this book. Also, again, look up the trigger warnings though, because there are some, but otherwise it's a beautiful book. Next one is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahereh Mafi. This book, again, very emotional, made me feel a lot of feelings, and most of them were rage, disgust from people's behaviors, and yeah, they were not happy emotions, but there were some happy emotions, but mostly I was just really pissed. So this book follows a 16-year-old Muslim girl named Shireen, and it's set a year after 9/11, so in 2002. So it's very turbulent times, especially for her. She is wearing hijab, so she's very visibly Muslim, and she is very discriminated for it. The people are being like total assholes to her. Like, I read this book in April, and still whenever I remember how some of the people treated her, I get really fucking mad. It was horrible and heartbreaking, and it's a great book, but so sad and maddening. Anyway, what's it about? Basically, we follow Shireen. She just wants to live her life. People are not letting her. She's obviously kind of done with it, and so she builds up these walls around her. She doesn't let anybody in. Understandable. But then she meets this boy. His name is Ocean, and she starts reconsidering if maybe she should lower the walls for him, because maybe he's worth it. That's all I'm gonna say. It's beautiful. It's a very strong book, just like a lot of other books on this list, and it's young adult, and it's one of those young adults that really stayed with me, and I love those kind of books. The next book, actually the next two books, I'm just gonna quickly mention. I talked about them in my last video, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts, just watch that one. But it's Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree and The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Both of these books I loved for very different reasons, but I love them. The Legends and Lattes were just super cozy, wholesome fantasy. I loved it. It was so nice, just nice. And then The Secret History was not exactly nice, but it was definitely enjoyable for entirely different reasons. I loved the language, I loved the dark academia vibes. Even the story, the like reverse mystery, was really cool. But like I said, I don't want to stay with these two for too long, because I already talked about them in my last video, so yeah. Alright, the next book is a romance novel, and it really... I don't want to say it surprised me, because it was really hyped up, but I was kind of surprised at how much I loved it, and that's Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Look at the cover, it's so beautiful. I don't know, I really like this version of the cover. Like, I don't know. This book really gave me everything I wanted it to give. it's about Nora, who is this very hardworking, driven woman who keeps getting broken up with in favor of some small town cute girl who isn't as like career driven, and her exes seem to like these not career driven women better. It's basically a reverse small town trope, so she keeps getting dumped for the cute baker in the small town romance. And I love that throughout the book she doesn't change, in a way that she doesn't stop focusing on her career. She doesn't settle down for something that she doesn't actually want. She stays true to herself. She's smart, she's determined. We love to see it. Also, the third act, like conflict, is not stupid. Like, it's actually realistic. Like, it makes sense why it's there. And I was like really heartbroken reading it, because I was so worried like it's not gonna end well, and I'm not gonna tell you if it did or didn't, but let's just say that I like that about the book, that it wasn't like this sugar-coated perfect version of romance. It was more realistic than other romance books that I tend to read. And of course it's still a romance book, so I'm not saying it's fully realistic. I don't think it is, but it's a bit more realistic than the rest, and I like that. The last book is a young adult fantasy, and it's Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I don't know how much I want to tell you about this, because I think you should go into it without knowing too much. But like I said, it's a young adult fantasy, and it's very much about the power of dreams and dreaming, and those head in the clouds people who are just dreamers. And I love that, and I'm so sad that I kept putting this off for the longest time. I think I was scared I'm not gonna like it, because a lot of people recommended it, and I was just scared that it's not gonna live up to the hype. And so I kept putting it off, but oh my god, I should have read this when I was like 16. I mean, I loved it even now, but I think it would have given me so much more when I was 16. But well, didn't happen. It follows Laszlo, who is, I don't know how old he is, maybe 16 or something. And he, since he's been a little boy, he kept dreaming about this mysterious city. And he basically researched it so much, and he dreamt of getting there like one day. And then this opportunity comes by, and let's just say his dreams might be coming true. So it's part of a duology. It's the first book. The second one is The Muse of Nightmares, and I also like that one. I didn't put it on this list just because I think I like the first one a bit better. And also I read the second one really quickly, like I almost skim read it, which is sad because the language is beautiful. It's written in such a beautiful way. So skim reading it is like a crime, which I did commit though. So yeah, it's beautiful. Both the books are beautiful, and I really liked the magic system, or sort of the way things worked, and also the characters. Oh my god, Laszlo, such a sweetheart, and the other main characters were all, I don't know, I just thought they were all really interesting. Alright, that's it. That's all the books I really loved this year. Well, it's not all the books I loved, but it's the best books that I read. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too long. I really tried my best. Let me know in the comments below what were your favorite books, and maybe even why, if you feel like sharing, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye!